Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge Reloaded. The first time my parents turned me down, I was on the floor of my flat, surrounded by overdue notices and sealed envelopes, staring at my phone, hoping Mom would say anything that hinted at care. "Mia," she finally said, her tone flat. "We can't give you $10,000. $10,000? Not for extravagance, not for ease, just to stop my world from crumbling." I thanked them anyway. I always did. Years went by. I rebuilt it all solo, gradually, painfully, silently. I thought that page was turned. I thought I was truly independent. Then my phone rang again. Same number, same voices. This time, my father didn't pause. "We need $500,000, he said. "For your brother's wedding." I actually chuckled because I thought it had to be a prank. It wasn't. When I said no, the quiet on the line weighed heavier than all the years they'd overlooked me. And that's when I realized this was never just about cash. I used to think that if you hustled hard enough, requested nicely enough, and showed you were accountable, family would meet you midway. I clung to that because I had to. Letting go would've meant facing something far more hurtful. Back then, my existence was unraveling in silent, humiliating ways. Not the sort of breakdown folks spot. No splashy news, no abrupt crises, just bills stacking, gigs drying without renewal, and that constant knot in my gut every time my phone pinged. I was operating my own tiny marketing consultancy, and one rough quarter had snowballed into 4 clients gone. Costs didn't vanish. I did what everyone advises. I slashed expenses. I downsized my space. I sold gadgets I cherished and acted like I didn't mind. I stopped socializing, stopped replacing broken items, stopped resting soundly. Still, it wasn't sufficient. That's when the figures started tormenting me. $10,000. With it, I could square rent, steady my income, and gain breathing room. Without it, I was headed for losing all I'd labored years to create. I gazed at that sum like it was a precipice. Calling my parents was the last resort. I hadn't sought anything from them since university. I was the self-reliant one, the daughter who sorted things, who didn't require aid, who always comforted them. I'm okay, truly, even when I wasn't. But desperation strips dignity raw. I drove to their home. On a cloudy afternoon, practicing my lines the whole trip. I told myself I wouldn't get sentimental. I wouldn't blame. I'd be pragmatic. This would be a loan. I'd bring docs. I'd make it simple for them to agree. We sat at the kitchen counter, same spot where I'd done assignments as a child. Same faint aroma of tea and polish. My father sat opposite, arms crossed. My mother fiddled with her mug over and over, even after the honey dissolved. "I just need a brief loan," I said. My voice steadier than I felt. 10,000, I'll add interest. I'll document it. My father didn't probe for details. He didn't ask how dire things were or how long I'd been struggling. He just leaned back and shook his head once. "That's not something we're at ease with," he said. I waited for follow-up, a query. "Anything?" My mother finally spoke, eyes on her cup. "You picked a precarious route, Mia. We can't intervene every time things toughen." I remember nodding like that was logical, like I hadn't spent years being cautious, like this wasn't a crisis. "I get it," I said. The words tasted sour. "I just figured since it's short term. We have other focuses," my father interrupted. "We need to consider your brother's prospects." There it was. Dylan. Always lurking. Always the unspoken priority. I didn't debate. I didn't weep. I didn't remind them of how often I'd helped him, covered for him, boosted him when no one else would. I just smiled, thanked them for their time, and left. I sat in my car after, hands trembling on the wheel, staring at the house like it might utter something if I lingered. It didn't. That night, alone in my flat, I realized something had shifted. It wasn't just that they denied me funds. They denied seeing me as worth any risk. And that realization lingered with me, quiet, heavy, and unresolved for years. After that day, something inside me closed off, not noisily, not dramatically, but with a silent finality that frightened me more than rage ever could. I didn't call my parents to quarrel. I didn't send lengthy texts explaining. I simply faded from their emotional sphere. So they wouldn't step in when I was sinking, then I'd learn to float solo. The months that ensued were brutal. I took every gig I could snag, no matter how minor or draining. I worked deep into nights, replying to emails at 3 a.m., convincing myself rest was a luxury I couldn't afford. I negotiated extensions with landlords, stretched meals into weeks, and learned to coexist with constant worry buzzing under my skin. Some nights, I sat on my bed's edge, staring at the wall, wondering how close I was to breaking. Other nights, I forced myself to plan, spreadsheets, forecasts, contingencies, because planning gave me a sense of grip. Gradually, agonizingly, it began to pay off. One client sparked another. A brief deal grew into a steady one. My balance stopped plummeting and started climbing. I wasn't flourishing, but I was enduring. And with each tiny victory, something else blossomed beside my finances. Distance. My parents never followed up. No, how are you holding? No, need anything? No nod that I'd ever been on the edge. But Dylan, my younger brother, was everywhere in their world. I heard about him through side comments and casual drops. Dylan had quit another position. Dylan was scouting chances. Dylan needed aid with bills again. Dylan wanted to backpack to reset. And my parents covered every time. When Dylan faltered, it was framed as promise. When I faltered, it was framed as bad choices. I told myself not to be resentful. I told myself if I was imagining the disparity. But deep down, I knew better. I'd always known. If I refused, I knew when I was tested, I'd say no to a loan. By the time I was stable again, truly stable, I had transformed. I'd learned how to depend on myself, how to decline unpaid work, how to guard my time and energy. I stopped justifying my decisions to folks who'd already judged me. I assumed my parents and I would drift in that quiet, distant way. Polite chats on holidays, brief talks, no demands. Then the engagement news hit. Dylan was tying the knot. My mother rang, her tone suddenly lively, excited in a way I hadn't heard in ages. She chattered about locations, attendees, blooms, palettes. She sounded proud, thrilled. I listened, nodding to an empty space. They want to make it really memorable, she said. Sophia's kin has certain expectations. That word made my gut clench. Expectations. A few weeks later, my father called. Not to inquire how I was, not to commend my recent wins. Not even to reconnect. Mia, he said, skipping any hello. We need to talk about your input to the wedding. I remember leaning back in my chair, already wary. My input? Yes, he said matter-of-factly. $500,000. I thought I'd misheard. Pardon? 500, he repeated. It's crucial we present well. Dylan can't lag behind Sophia's kin. I felt something chill spread through my chest. You denied me 10,000, I said slowly. When I was desperate. That was different. My mother snapped from the background. Different because I was the wrong child. Because my crisis wasn't worth the risk. Because my survival had never been the priority. I won't do it, I said. My voice calm in a way that surprised even me. I'm not paying for this. The silence that followed was thick, loaded. My father spoke last. If you don't support your brother, he said, then don't expect to be treated like family. The call ended. I stared at my phone, hands steady, heart racing. For the first time, I didn't feel crushed. I felt clear because now I understood. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about control. For years, I'd been useful when I was quiet and accommodating. The moment I said no, truly no, I became a problem to be corrected. Phoned my lawyer, Sophia Lane, verified all, tipped federal contacts. Phoned forensic accountant Lila Grant, she uncovered $5 million diverted, warrants pending. 9 p.m., Malcolm's toast time. Guests gathered, glasses raised. Adrian had the AV ready. Malcolm boomed about, welcoming Ryan to the family, and bright futures together. Screens shifted, not couple photos, but documents, fraud filings, alias records, victim statements. Gasps rippled. Malcolm stammered, technical glitch. But slides continued, Vanessa's old photos, money trails. Victoria paled, Ryan stared in horror. I walked to the stage, boots echoing on marble. Adrian announced, please welcome Lauren Hayes, owner of Apex Haven and Hayes Retreats. The room went dead silent. Mom's face drained of color, Ryan's mouth opened, Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. I took the mic from Malcolm's limp hand, the Hargroves aren't who they say. Their empire is a scam stealing from investors. Victoria is Vanessa Croft, a career con artist. Victoria screamed lies, but feds entered, badges out. Malcolm tried fleeing, cuffed. Evelyn sobbed. Victoria lunged at me, you were supposed to be nothing. Security stopped her. I leaned in, this grubby rat owns the floor you're standing on, and just ended your game. They were let out in cuffs amid stunned silence. Party over, but bars stayed open, guests needed drinks after that. Ryan approached, shattered, how did you? I said, by paying attention, something no one did for me. He apologized for years of ignoring me. Mom, seeing transfer records, the money was you? Tears, real ones. She returned the bracelet. Weeks later, Hargroves charged, assets frozen. Ryan dissolved engagement, started healing. Mom began therapy, real conversations. I hosted a scholarship brunch, lifted a small-town kid, reminded snobs underdogs win. Now, in my office overlooking the city, I know, those who belittle you never see you coming. The grubby rat? She built the trap they walked into. Thanks so much for watching. More of my most gripping stories are already on your screen. Click one now and don't miss the best part. You will love it. See you in the next story.